Let's review the 4 ways that we have learned to solve quadratic equations. The first way is graphing. Although graphing can sometimes be tedious because you have to make a table of values, and also with graphing you may not see where the x-intercepts are because they do not lie on nice integers. But graphing is still a way that you can solve a quadratic equation, or at least see the solutions. You could also solve algebraically, but remember, solving algebraically only works when the b value is equal to 0. The other way you could solve a quadratic equation is by factoring, but factoring will only work if the quadratic equation is factorable. And that leads us to the last way, which is the quadratic formula. And that's absolutely going to work on any quadratic equation. Even though it may not be the fastest method, it will always work. So in the next few examples that I take you through, I just want you to see if you can figure out the best method to solving the quadratic equation. So let's take a look at our first example. Y equals 2x squared minus 32. So how would we solve this, and what would be the best method? Well, do you notice how there's no b value? Yeah, so solving algebraically would probably be the fastest way to solve this quadratic equation. So let's give it a try. We're going to set y equal to 0 because remember, solutions are x-intercepts. And I'm going to use algebra and solve the equation for x. So my goal here is to isolate the x and find the values of it. So here I'm going to undo by division. And I get x squared is equal to 16. And of course, I just want the value of x, so I'm going to take the square root. And now remembering that the square root of 16 could be 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, but the square root of 16 could also be negative 4, because negative 4 times negative 4 is also 16. So here we have two solutions, positive and negative 4. And remember that those are ordered pairs, which the parabola is going to touch along the x-axis. So I could write them as an ordered pair. I could also use the notation of positive and negative 4 like this. That works too. Lots of ways to write that. But we would use algebra because there's no b value. That would be the quickest way. Let's try another one. Number 2, y equals 3x squared minus 17x plus 11. Now, what would be the best method to solving this quadratic equation? What are your thoughts? Were you thinking quadratic formula? Yeah, I was thinking that too. Now, maybe the reason why you're thinking quadratic formula is because you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I'd want to factor that. Whoops. And maybe you wouldn't want to factor that. And maybe you start factoring it and you realize it's not factorable. So if I took 3 times 11 and got 33, oh boy, if I did take 3 times 11 and got 33, if I tried doing the trick on this, there's no factors of 33 that you could use to give you a 17. So you can't factor it. All right, so quadratic formula, it's going to have to be it. So let's give it a try. We've got our a is 3, our b is negative 17, and our 11 is c. So quadratic formula, x is equal to negative b, but b is already negative, so positive 17 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, let's begin by simplifying this a little bit. So we have 17 plus or minus. Let's see if we can simplify what is underneath that radical. Looks like we've got negative 17 squared with your calculator minus 4 times 3 times 11. I'm getting 157. Okay, and we want to all over 2 times 3, which is 6. All right, now we're ready to branch out. So we've got 17 plus square root of 157. Now, square root of 157, I'm going to have to round that because it doesn't come out perfectly. So square root of 157 will be about 12.53. That'd be pretty close, divided by 6. And then I've got 17 minus the square root of 157, which is about, we said 12.53 over 6. And you could do 17 plus and type in the square root of 157. That works too. I'm going to round it. I think we'll still be okay. So 17 plus the 12.53, and we're going to divide that by 6, giving us the answer of about 4.9. And then we got 17 minus the square root of 157, and we're going to take that now and divide that by 6, giving us about, if we went to the tenths place, 1 decimal place, about 0.7. So we're going to get 2 positive solutions here. So if we graph this, the parabola is going to touch the x-axis in 2 spots, at 4.9 and at 0.7, using quadratic formula. Okay, looking at number 3. Checking out 3, y equals x squared plus 7x plus 10. What are your thoughts? Are you thinking factoring, right? Because we have a leading coefficient of 1. We have an a, b, and a c value. Yeah, I think factoring too. Factoring would be probably the quickest way to solve. So let's do factoring. Okay, so I'm going to set y equal to 0. And I'm going to factor this. Oh, that kind of turned out goofy. Try that again. Okay, so we know that this is going to be x times x. And now we need what multiplies to 10 that you can use to add and get 7. And that would be 5 times 2. They both have to be positive to multiply to get a positive 10 and add to a positive 7. So now I'm going to use the zero product property to solve. So pulling them apart, x plus 5 equals 0. And the x plus 2 equals 0. There's one solution, negative 5. There's the second solution, negative 2. Notice how both solutions are negative numbers. Negative 5, negative 2. And factoring was the quickest method there on that one. Okay, last one, number 4. So on here, x squared plus 4x minus 15, leading coefficient of 1. We have an a, b, and a c value. I wonder if you're thinking factoring. But let's just check here, because if we look at 15, multiples of 15, or factors of 15 is 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. Are either of those going to add together to get you a 4? No. So this isn't factorable. So even though it looks like factoring is going to be the best method, it's not, because this isn't even factorable. So if it's not factorable, then the only way that I can solve it then is that quadratic formula. So quadratic formula is going to be our best bet on this one. Okay, so our A is 1. Our A is 1, B, and C. Okay, here we go. X is equal to negative B plus or minus the square root. B squared minus 4 AC all over 2A. Okay, let's take it and simplify it. Negative 4 plus or minus. Let's simplify what's underneath that radical. So 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 15. I'm getting 76. Okay, and divide that by 2a, which is 2. Okay, we're ready to branch off for our 2 solutions. So we've got negative 4 plus the square root of 76. Now you could simplify the square root of 76 and round it to a decimal, or you can leave it square root of 76. And you're going to take that and divide it by 2. And then we've got the negative 4 minus the square root of 76. And we're going to divide that by 2. So 2 solutions here. You ready? Okay, first one. Negative 4 plus the square root of 76. I'm pushing equals and then I'm dividing it by 2. And we're going to round it to just the tenths. We'll just go 1 decimal place. And that's going to round up to 2.4 as a solution. Okay, then the other one, negative 4 minus the square root of 76. I'm going to push equals here before I divide it by 2. And the other solution, if we go out to the tenths place, is a negative solution, negative 6.4. So here we have one positive solution, one negative solution. Now, do you see why this wasn't factorable? Because our solutions weren't integers. So quadratic formula is going to always work for you. All right, thanks for joining me for the review on what's the most appropriate method or best method to solve a quadratic equation. Have a great day, everyone.